Hello and welcome to another breakout session. This is breakout session number 19, calling this one Put a Little Jazz in Your Blues. So I want to say hi to all the members of the Guitar League around the country that might be watching today, and hope that you would subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell so we can notify you when the next one's coming out. I haven't done one in a while, so I'm going to do two. I'm going to break this into two parts, and I'm going to do another video to follow shortly behind this one. So if you hit the bell, we'll notify you when the second one comes out. So I'm not a jazz guy, but I certainly can appreciate jazz. And guys like B.B. King, they weren't necessarily jazz guys, but they put a lot of jazz in their blues. And then you got contemporary guys like Robin Ford, Peter Frampton, Eric Johnson. Those guys are always putting a little jazz influence into their blues or into their songs. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. In past breakout sessions, we've talked a lot about different intervals. We talked about third intervals, we talked about fourths, we talked about sixths, we talked about tenths. Now we're going to talk about eighths, which is AKA octaves, okay, 8 tones apart. A la Wes Montgomery and Kenny Burrell and even Stevie Ray Vaughan. And a lot of people obviously use octaves. All the jazz guys throw them in there for sure. So we're going to jazz up our blues a little bit. So, you know, this is another good reason why you should learn all the notes on the fretboard. But this exercise today is going to actually help you learn notes on the fretboard if you don't know them already. You need to know a few, but it's going to help you find the other ones. And unlike some of the other intervals that we used, there was a minor interval and a major interval. So if you were going up a scale, you had to worry about, was that a minor shape or a major shape as you went through the scale. These are just notes. These are the same 2 notes an octave apart. So there is no minor or major here. So you just go up the scale and don't worry about that. And you're not going to change the shape because of major or minor. There's going to be 2 shapes we're going to learn today, and they have to do more with the tuning of the guitar, okay? So the first shape we're going to use is going to have, when we have the root either on the E string or the A string, we're going to use one shape for that. And then when we have the root on the D string and the G string, we're going to use a different shape for that. And the reason being is because in standard tuning, your E, A, D, and G string and high E string are all tuned a fourth apart. The B string is a third higher than the G string. So that pesky little B string always changes your fingering when you cross over it or land on it. So the first shape that you're going to learn is when we have the root on the sixth or the fifth string. Okay, so the way that one works is you're going to, let's say we're going to take G, the G note right here. Okay, you're going to go 2 more strings down from that. So you go 1, 2, and then you're going to go over 2 frets. I got my pinky on here because I got little hands. Okay, so that's a G. So anything that we're doing on these 2 strings, so if we go to C and we go down 2 and over 2, there's another C. Okay, and the trick to this octave playing thing is, let's go back to the G. I got a G and a G. In between, there's the A string. Hopefully you can see this all right on this camera. Well, you have to mute the A string or the string in between. You're going to mute. So when you hit the G note with your index finger, you're just touching the A string, which is deadening it. Let's give you a little volume here so you can hear. So you got a G, a mute, and a G. And you're just playing those 3 strings. So if you came down to a C, you got a C, a mute, and a C. And you're just playing those 3 strings with the one in the middle muted. Okay, so that was shape 1. Shape 2. When we cross over the B string, so let's say we come here to F, the F note. Now we're going to go down 2, and we're going to go over 3. So we got an F and an F, and we're going to mute that middle string. Guys like Wes Montgomery and some of the other jazz guys, they play that with their thumb. They play because it's just a nice mellow sound when you do that. So they play with their thumb. You can do it with a pick too. You just have to be real gentle with it. You can't bang into it with the pick because then that dead string is probably going to really ring out too loud. Or you can, you can pick the 2 outside strings, just the octaves too, with your thumb and first finger if you want to. If you're a finger picker, that might be the way you do it. That way you've already deadened, you're not concerned with that dead string on there. Okay, so we'll go over the 2 shapes again, but let's just take, we're starting with G. That's the one when we're on the top string. We got a G, a dead string, and we got another G. So if we wanted to do a G scale, we would probably go G, A, B, C. Then we could drop down to D, E, F sharp, and G. Okay. If you were going to do a C, you might be able to stay on those two strings all the way up. You could start with C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So if you guys would work on those two scales, like a G scale starting on the 6th string and going down to the 5th string, and maybe a C scale just on the 5th string, so that we don't get too complicated. We'll get back to this in the next breakout session, but we just want you to work on those scales, okay? But we said learning the fretboard. So for instance, okay, if we know that we've got a G here and a G here now, right? We've got one here, because we learned that we do. So if you come to this G and go down 2 and over 3, there's a G there. So there's a G, G. Okay? I happen to know there's a G right here. And I know that if I go down 2 from there and over 2, I find another G. So I found a whole bunch of G's on this fretboard so far. And then if I come down to this G, and I go down 2 and I go over 3, there's some more G's. So now I know where a lot of G's are on this fretboard. There's also an open G, and there's a G here, you know, so we know that. If we took that with every note in a scale, for instance, and we learned more than one position of those, we're starting to learn all the notes on the fretboard. It's just another way of doing it. And the way I did it was that I took a note. Let's say today I'm going to take G as my note today. And I would learn every G on the fretboard all day long till I could find them with it. I didn't have to count up. I didn't have to do anything. I just knew that there was a G there, and a G there, and a G there, and a G there, and a G there. I just knew it because I worked on it like for a day or two at a time. And then I pick another note. And I wouldn't necessarily go in order because that's too easy. You know, then you go, oh, well, it's just one higher than the other one. So I'd pick a note totally off, a random note, and work on that for a couple of days, find every one of those on the fretboard. And before you know it, you know where every note is on the fretboard. And if your mind kind of goes a little kooky on you, you can rely back to this shape that I just showed you, these two shapes, to help you find that note. If you were playing along and you wanted to go to another octave of a scale, you know, if you're playing in a G scale, you know, playing some lead stuff, and your mind's kind of blanking out on you, and you want to go to the next octave of it, you can use that shape to find it. You know, the next octave up, or even the next octave, or wherever you're going. Okay, so now that you know this, you're gonna learn some scales, the G and the C scale. Okay, that's pretty simple. If you know, in a lot of the other breakout sessions, we go over scales and what's in a scale and stuff like that. So you should be able to do this just with the octaves. Okay, especially if you just stick, for now, if you stick to the E string and the A string and learn all those octaves first. Okay, that'll help, and then we'll branch out into all the other strings. So now that you know that, you could play little melodies or arpeggios in octaves. If you just, let's say you had a melody, and you practice it with just this finger, the melody, okay? Then you can add the octave to it, to that melody. Learn it with this finger first and then just add that shape to it. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Whatever the melody is, if you practice it with one finger on that melody, if you want to use octaves for that melody. And you know, octaves you use sparingly. You're not going to play a whole song in octaves, but you're going to throw it in there to make it sound like you're really jazzing up your blues. You know, like if you listen to a song like Chitlin Con Carne, which was a Kenny Burrell song originally, and Stevie Ray Vaughan does a version of it that's unbelievable, you'll notice that they throw some octaves in there. You know, they take the main lick and they turn it into octaves, but they don't play the whole song like that. So I used the backing track on the beginning of this and kind of played along with it a little bit. That's the Stevie Ray Vaughan version. The song is in C. It's a 1-4-5 progression in C, but they're using like 13ths or a C7 add 9 kind of chord as the one chord, but then you can play a minor pentatonic over it. Anyway, that's in the next week's lesson. But the song is in C with Kenny Burrell, but because Stevie Ray Vaughan is usually turned down a half a tone, if you want to play along with the backing track of Stevie Ray Vaughan, you need to play that whole thing in B or tune down a half a step. But the one that I was playing along with, it's a half a step down, but I was playing along in B. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so we're going to break this into 2 breakout sessions, and we're going to add some more jazz to our blues. And what we're going to talk about in the next one is shell voicings, and these are really cool little shapes where you can basically play any chord in jazz with about 8 different shapes that we're going to talk about next time out. So you can throw a lot of jazz in your blues, or you could actually play some jazz. You can comp along with a jazz standard once you learn these shapes. Okay, and they're not very complicated, so we're going to talk about it next week. So, and we're going to talk about jazzing up the blues a little bit, so we'll talk about those shapes, and we'll also talk a little bit again about diminished sevenths, which we talked about before, but how you can throw those in place of pretty much any chord in blues. So we'll talk about that next time. So don't miss the next breakout session. So I hope what you would do is just subscribe, hit the little bell, and I'll tell you when the next breakout session's coming along. And if you like these things, please hit the like button. I'd sure appreciate it. And we're going to use that same backing track that we came in on, and we're going to just go out on that. So that would be, you'd be playing this in a B minor pentatonic to play out with this. Okay, but basically learn your octaves on the E string and A string for now. And then we'll get back to this and spice it up a little more. Okay, see you in the next video.